if an advisory group is not educating, teaching, and engaging with the next generation, they're going to lose them.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of WPTV. My name is David Katai, Senior Editor at Wealth Professional. Every year, WP releases our 5-star wealth advisors list to highlight some of the best and the brightest that the Canadian wealth management industry has to offer. Today, we're lucky to be joined by one of those luminaries, Thane Stenner, Senior Portfolio Manager and Senior Wealth Advisor at Stenner Wealth Partners Plus of CG Wealth Management. Thane will talk us through his career, how he's built a multifamily office to serve the kind of clients that so many advisors want in their practices. Thane, welcome to WPTV.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be with you again.
It is always a pleasure to have you. And I know we've talked about this before, but I want to start by giving our viewers a bit of a primer on yourself and your business. So can you talk me through your practice? Who do you serve and how do you serve them?
Great question. So let's start there. So typically our clients have at least $10 million liquid with us and or $25 million plus net worth, all the way up to $1 billion plus net worth. So we deal with some of Canada's wealthiest families, most successful families today. And we have a practice that's been doing that for over 30 years now.
That's an amazing business. And as I kind of said in my intro, that is the dream business for many of the advisors that I interview on a daily basis. But, you know, the dream and the reality can sometimes be different things. So what are some of the challenges you often have to address when you are working with clients of that caliber?
You have to basically anticipate their needs more. You have to be very creative with your solution sets. You have to be precise with your solution set, and your service model has to be exceptionally good because these people are used to dealing with top professionals. They're willing to pay for their professional advice, and they're used to getting very good advice. So they do not suffer fools easily. They expect very good expertise, in essence, from their advisors.
One question that occurs to me now is, you know, clients who operate at that caliber, they tend to be quite global in nature and exposed to different global service providers. So how do you deal with the competition that you might see from other advisory firms and wealth managers that are, you know, maybe operating in the US or the UK that offer the sort of concierge service, the ones who will book your jet and, you know, plan your vacation in addition to dealing with your investment management?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, you have to work professionally and collaboratively with other professionals. So yes, they do tend to have other providers as well, both accounting, tax, legal, other wealth advisors. They rarely have just one. So we're used to being part of a cadre or a collection of various advisors. Now, obviously, our job is to try to have as much share of mind or expertise with them as possible. So we try our very best to be their lead advisor, especially from a strategic thinking perspective. But at the end of the day, they tend to utilize a lot of different providers for different services.
I think you've hinted at this already, but in looking at your own practice and assessing, you know, success in your business, what do you think has set you apart?
I think the fact is that we've honed in and specified on dealing with this cohort of types of clients only. So we don't deal with 600 clients or 1,000 clients like some advisors. Currently, we deal with 55 key relationships from across Canada and globally, and we're very selective, candidly, as to who we bring on as new clients, key clients. We typically bring on only between 6 and 8 new key clients a year. So we're very selective. Yes, they have a lot of money. Yes, they have a very high net worth. But in the same token, we also select them from point of view of just compatibility, fits, and as we say in our business, life is short, so you want to deal with people that you want to deal with at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually leads neatly into sort of the other side of running your business, which is the team you've constructed. Because, serving, as you say, wealthy families requires a lot of complexity, requires a lot of different aspects of service, and requires more than what one individual can probably provide. So how have you built a team to serve these clients?
Very carefully. I think one of the traits that we all have on our team as a professional advisory group is real dedication to wanting to service our clients exceptionally well. So not, we don't want to just be good. We want to be great for them, and we want to provide them with top quality advice, every day that we interact with them. So at the end of the day, I think it really kind of comes back to having a mindset around being almost compulsive in our service offering, in that we will respond very proactively on a timely basis, and hopefully with exceptional advice each time, so that they kind of go, wow, I hadn't thought about that. That was very good. Like, so that you're constantly trying to impress them at the end of the day. And that requires a mindset of exceptionalism versus just do the job, right? At the end of the day.
A lot of people who run businesses the way you do will talk about the challenges that come with building a team and the lessons that come with building a team. Can you highlight some of those lessons for me and the things you've learned in building out a team of advisors and support staff to really meet these client needs?
I think I'd start with trying to minimize turnover. You want to have people on your team that you've worked with for a long period of time, that clients get very familiar with, because they don't want to see a lot of turnover. They want to see people, there's continuity, there's familiarity, and there's a warmth actually of relationship, because a lot of the meetings we do are over Zoom or WebEx or Teams, etc., because our clients are global. They're traveling a lot. And so we do a lot of video, especially in the last 6 years since, COVID kind of hit us all. And, we do in-person meetings as well, of course, but we do a lot of video.
Mhm.
I'd say it's probably 95% of the meetings we do are on video these days. So you have to be able to communicate well on video. You have to be able to screen share information, bounce around so that they feel like there's a natural flow of information and it's not stilted, right? So I know it sounds kind of simple, but doing that well is actually not an easy thing to do. You want to make sure they feel like, oh, that was a really productive meeting each time they actually interact with you.
Nailing the small stuff. Professionals in so many industries I've spoken to, not just in wealth management, will talk about how if you're getting the small stuff right, then the big stuff tends to follow.
Very well said.
Yeah. Well, there's another term that I see you use a fair bit, and I believe you've trademarked it.
Yes.
Um, you talk about the wealth curve, TEM,
Yes.
and how client needs evolve as their wealth grows. How has that framework kind of shaped the way you advise high net worth and ultra high net worth families? And why do you believe it's so important in delivering the right advice at the right stage of wealth?
Two things I'd say there. One is uh, more wealth tends to bring more complexities. There's more things that wealthy people do than the general masses, quite candidly. Things from philanthropic issues to alternative investments to looking at investment policy statements, various tax advantaged investments. The more wealth you have, the more complexity comes with it, the more tax issues come up, more professionals that you have that you're dealing with. So at the end of the day, it's kind of moving up the wealth curve. The second point I guess I would definitely point out is a lot of times people feel like, especially when they've gone through a liquidity event, they've sold a business for 100 million or some number, um, they have dealt with maybe their high school buddy or friend as an advisor, and managing some capital with them for a couple $1 million or whatnot is one thing, but also they feel like they're naturally in a different stratosphere or a different level of complexity, and they don't want to miss anything. They want to make sure their advisors are kind of now at their level. So again, as you move up the wealth curve, a lot of times what ends up happening is wealthy investors kind of feel like, really like my guy or gal that I've dealt with for, 5, 10, 20 years from high school or whatever, university. But I now feel like I need a more advanced team of professionals to actually take me to the next level and handle this responsibility of significant wealth, especially after liquidity events or business sales.
So another question that occurs is around the next generations of those families. Because as you say, you're serving families and, the young people in that family, they may be kind of in an odd space on the wealth curve because they know they will come into this family wealth. They know they come from this background, but they themselves are starting out in the world, finding their feet, trying to articulate who they are, how they earn, what they do. I guess, how do you navigate them and where do you place them along the wealth curve in your service?
Great point. This is a really important point. Surveys, and you and I have seen probably research on this quite a bit. Something like 80% of the next generation moves on from mom and dad's advisors. So if an advisory group is not educating, teaching, and engaging with the next generation, they're going to lose them. Probably going to lose them to groups like us, to be candid. So we think very much in a multi-generational point of view, and we engage with educational sessions all the time with next gen on their investments. And we basically try to treat them so they're part of the family, but they're also their own individuals. For example, I was on a call just the other day, a video call. Some parents introduced us into their 3 kids. One just moved back from London, England. So we did a video call. It was, again, much easier than doing it in person. And it was quite fascinating. So I took them through a set of questions and I asked each one. And mom and dad were kind of smiling, kind of in the background, because they could kind of see how their kids were answering it. And then we try as a group to always try to make it as interactive and interesting for the next gen as possible. And, the sooner they get comfortable with the team, the better, right? And so my particular team, Stenner Wealth Partners, average age is probably around 41 years old. So again, a lot of the kids to these wealthy families are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. So we're kind of hitting the demographic curve as well as the wealth curve overall by appealing to mom and dad, but also making sure that our full team is engaging with the next generation on a regular basis. So educational articles, interviews, discussion points. We'll send them books, like digital books, reading articles on different topics of interest. And that's how you engage, and you have to make it interesting for them. Otherwise, they'll, get bored and kind of move off to somebody else over time. So that's certainly what we're thinking in multi-generational terms.
Absolutely. And I think you demonstrate in that approach just how much work it takes. And just how much day to day coaching, checking in, maintaining, again, doing all those little things right consistently.
Yes,
That's tough.
it is tough. And I guess I said the word earlier that I'll reemphasize is you have to be compulsive in many ways about how you serve these families. Like, because at the end of the day, they're used to top level service. When they travel, they stay at the Four Seasons. They travel around the world. They see and experience a lot of things, so they're used to a certain level of touch and engagement, and level of sophistication. So at the end of the day, you have to pay attention to the details, which is something we pride ourselves on doing. We have a service plan, a customized service plan that we set up for each client, a family unit, and we tell them. So we discuss with them kind of what they'd like to see. First of all, we put it in writing to them as to what that plan is, and then we execute on it, and then we report to them once a year saying, "Here's what we said we were going to do, and here's what we ended up doing." And hopefully, each year, the annual client service report card that we provide shows we've actually exceeded their expectations. That's the goal, right? That's not easy to do, and definitely not easy to do, and it requires a lot of work. So you have to have that hustle factor You have to have that ability as a team and as a group to really want to go the next mile, the next step each day that you're coming in to serve clients. It can't feel like a chore. You have to get energized by dealing with your clients. And if you're energized and you're enjoying the engagement and that you're having interactions with them that are very personalized, you get to know them really well, and it doesn't feel like it's work. Trust me, it's definitely work, but in the same token, it doesn't feel as much like it's work because it comes very naturally over time, right? They know us, we get to know them, and they get to know our group very well.
Well, it's interesting that, as you say, it's not entirely the case, but the work itself is part of the reward in some ways. That the nature of the engagement, the nature of that relationship is part of what makes this job fulfilling for yourself and for your team, rather than, of course, just the
I,
you know compensation.
yeah, yeah. So, Dave, you make a very good point here. I mean, at the end of the day, problem solving, anticipating, having people kind of go, "Wow, okay, that was a really creative idea. Thank you for bringing that up," is professionally speaking very rewarding. Compensation comes with it because if you do a good job, people will stay with you. They'll give you more capital over time, of course. And we're all in business to provide for our families. So yes, that's true. But that those reactions, the feedback that we get, we ask during reviews all the time about any areas of improvement, any areas that you'd like to see more of or less of, right? So
Mhm.
that's how we're constantly trying to evolve it. So it's not an easy segment of the market to service. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. That we're serving basically the top 1/10 of 1% of investor households, and or family offices, and or some institutional foundations as well. So you got to be on your game. At the end of the day, you got to be on your game in this business, in this line.
This leads quite neatly again into kind of a penultimate question for me, which is, given all that you've told me about your practice, the successes you've had, the nature of the work, the way you find reward in it, what do you actually define as success in your role?
Being able to add value in almost every single interaction you have with clients. So one of the things that we've tried to really lean into over time is having agendas for meetings in advance. I know it sounds really simple, but being pre-thought out before you go onto a call, before you do a review with the client, and trying to anticipate based upon what they've told you in the past, some of the things that they may need to be still thinking about. So nudging them, prompting them, reminding them, uh, thinking in advance of those meetings so that when you come to the meetings, you're not just winging it. Like you're literally coming up with ideas or solutions, which hopefully are creative, hopefully that are innovative, and that each time you're impressing them. That they're literally walking away going, "Wow, sharp group once again." They're demonstrating to us that they're bringing value, as much as possible to each interaction and to their specific situation. Because it's one thing to give general advice; it's a whole other thing to kind of give advice to a business owner or a philanthropic donor about something, or a family office about something what they're doing due diligence on. You gotta really show up. They don't care how many meetings you've had that day. What they care about is, did you show up, and were you sharp, and was your team sharp, and was your follow-up to that discussion sharp? And so again, notes, follow-ups, information, diarizing things. So it takes a lot of systems, processes, and we try at the end of the day to make it look easy. But there's a lot of paddling underneath the surface. Let's just put it that way.
As we've kind of mentioned, you run the sort of practice that a lot of advisors ascribe to or desire, but you also run a very specific practice, one that is, serves a very specific niche that is limited in size, and at least in terms of the number of clients you serve, intentionally. What do you hope the wider industry and the other advisors who are watching this, who may subscribe to your business model or who might want to emulate it or who may have business models of their own, what do you hope they take from your example?
Well, I think everybody should customize their own business based upon their work ethic, their specialty, the team size, the level of commitment at the end of the day that they're willing to put in. So, there's in our specific practice, we know that, okay, we've got to serve our existing clients exceptionally well, first and foremost. That's just priority one day, every day, that's what we're doing. So we can't, if you're serving this type of market, which we are, you can't take on too many new clients, for example. So that's the balancing act. It's like you want to grow your business, of course, but you want to do it in a very responsible way, in a way that doesn't negatively impact your existing clientele, while also onboarding, in our case, 6 to 8 new large clients a year that are very sophisticated, take a lot of effort to onboard properly. And, by doing so, you end up, it's a self-regulating as to how fast you can grow or how much you can grow. And the reality is, I would say over the next, 10 years, we'll probably grow to maybe 100 clients from 55 today. And so we'll have to be very careful as to how we do that, who we bring on board, team sizing, team training. And so you have to customize as we all move up the wealth curve. So 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was earlier on in my career, I had a mass affluent client base at that point in time, and we got up to like 660 households. So, and we served those 660 households pretty well for the size of clientele. But, I made a career decision that I wanted to go up the wealth curve, so to speak. I wanted to deal with wealthier and wealthier clients. And secondly, I wanted to know my clients much better at a much deeper level, more strategic level. So in order to do that, you can't do that with, I don't think realistically or practically speaking, you can even do that with 300 clients, especially at these levels of wealth. So you have to kind of balance back and forth between your service model, what you're willing to commit to from point of view of time, commitment, resources, money, because I invest in the practice, invest in great people, and try to pay them very well relative to industry standards. And therefore, you have to have a certain commitment level. You're either going to be in it, a certain area, or you're going to say, okay, actually, realistically, I'm going to kind of focus more on this other area, maybe a smaller, lower net worth type of clientele, which you can service very well. You can still have great practice. But at the end of the day, it's just, are you committed? Are you committed to actually serving a certain type of clientele for the rest of your career and multi-generationally? And is your team actually really set up to do that? So that's the goal. That's the aspirational aspect. That's what kind of drives us every single day.
That is a very, very thoughtful note to kind of close us out on, and really does, I think, lay down a gauntlet for other advisors who are watching, I think, in exactly the right way. So, Thane, all I have left to say is thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your insights with us today.
Thanks, David, once again. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise. And thank you so much to all of our viewers for WPTV. I've been David Katai. Have a great rest of your day.